Hello and welcome to the On the Slab Horror Show, the show that we bring to you each and every Friday night. Why Friday night? Because Friday night is horror night. Usually the two boys are here with me, but they're not here this evening. Work and other commitments have led them to miss tonight's show. But tonight we are joined by a guest, a fellow ginger guest at that.
Okay, great. Yeah, we
How
were
are
just
you,
talking about
James?
that. Yeah, I'm pretty good.
This is Mr. James Dermond, the author of Doorways to the Unseen, volumes 1 to 4.
Okay, good to be here.
Thanks for taking the time out of your day to come on. And obviously we reached out on Twitter. We connected on Twitter.
Mm-hmm.
And you were more than happy to come on the podcast. It's the first author I believe we've had on the show.
Okay, yeah, because usually you talk about just horror movies so far.
No, not necessarily horror movies. We've had shows that are linked to old Irish stories, like Irish horror places that are supposedly haunted in Ireland and stuff.
Okay, great.
Look, we'll do anything that's horror related. It's a very small market in terms of when we go author. I mean, because obviously everyone knows Stephen King, and at this stage, when we're only a growing podcast, you're not going to get Stephen King on.
Yeah.
I mean, but like we're starting to build a platform up, so we'll take any guest that we get, whether it be an actor, director, special effects, author, to that kind of way, and things like that. So we're really appreciative of you to give your time to come on tonight.
Yeah, it's great to be here.
Yeah, and obviously you can tell by the accent James is based over in the States. So we'll get a little bit about yourself, James.
Well, yeah, I've been writing since 2016. I'm writing a series called Doorways to the Unseen, which is a horror short story series. Volume 5 will be out in October this year, and each volume contains 6 short stories, and it's kind of a tour of the entire horror genre, all the themes and tropes and the things that are associated with horror. And I kind of some of the stories are completely original, but others are kind of based on other short stories or even movies, and I kind of do something fresh with each concept. So
it's very rare at this stage now with how far horror's came that something isn't loosely based off, say, a horror movie or a horror short story that you've seen along the way. So when you get something original, everyone kind of falls in love with it quite quickly.
Well, yeah, I mean, some of the stories, like I wrote one story, I actually wrote a trilogy over 3 volumes, volumes 2, 3, and 4. And it follows like a cursed pendant through Europe. Actually, this is one of the European stories I've written. And
Awesome.
it starts in medieval Germany in the 1300s. And then the pendant, you find out about more about the origin of the pendant in ancient Rome around 1 AD. And then it ends up in Victorian England around 1901, and that's the end of the trilogy. So it's a story about werewolves. It's not exactly a werewolf story because it doesn't have a lot of the conventions that the other werewolf stories do, but it's about humans that can transform into wolves, or wolves that can transform into humans.
Lycanthrope.
Lycanthrope.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, just within that, I'd say our co-host Carl would be well into that. He absolutely loves werewolves.
Yeah. So that if you want to read I just had a Canadian YouTuber called Mick Dark do an audio adaptation of the first story in volume 2. It's called The Great Black Beast, and you can just put Mick Dark stories into YouTube and you'll find it.
Oh, he reads it out, does he?
Yeah, it's done with not only a reading, but he does it with music and special effects, or like sound effects. So it's like a complete performance of with different voices of the story. And he does a good job. There are male and female characters, and he does a good job with all the different voices. And it has a sound, music, background music, and then it has sound effects, for the wolves and other things. And he recorded 2 of my other stories too.
Awesome. It's great when people can do that, and when it's done well, it's great. Like the very first time I listened to a book on YouTube, I actually listened to Stephen King's It.
Okay.
Obviously, I'm anyone that knows me, I'm dyslexic and I don't read quite a lot at all in terms of books. So this is kind of out of the realm for me. But like the first time I done it, I had someone like it was on YouTube. I found it as a read along, and there's something quite relaxing about listening to someone read the book to you. So I'd
Yeah.
imagine when it's done with special effects and music and things, it's
Yeah,
only better.
it is really, he did a really good job. He has his own studio. He has access to his own recording studio, and it's done in the studio. So it's not just like a laptop and a microphone kind of setup. It's professionally done and polished. And he told me that his dad was a voice actor and that he has his own home studio as well. So,
Class.
so he was, he's got a lot of experience doing it. He wants to do more stories. Apparently, he's really excited about Volume 5. I told him some of the stories that are in there.
So obviously the book has been quite popular since upon its first release, obviously in volume one.
Yeah, volume 1 did really well. It has 33 reviews on Amazon. I haven't been able to market the book as much as the series as much as I want to because I'm writing it in addition to the other things I'm doing. But yeah, I'm going to keep writing it. It's planned for 12 volumes, like 2 every year. So it'll
Oh yeah.
be volume 5 will be October this year, and then it'll follow an April October release schedule for the next several years until we get to volume 12, and
So
then
it'll be
I'll
like an anthology.
yeah, well, an anthology. It's different from an anthology because I'm the only writer. You know, and an
Oh,
anthology
so
is like
yeah,
a
yeah,
collection. Like if Stephen King, release like
yeah.
the Night Shift collection. If he releases his own stories, it's not. It's just a short story collection. An anthology has different writers in it. Um, so it's just a short story collection. I don't think there's a specific word for like a
Oh,
collection of stories by one writer. There might be, but and yeah, an anthology has different writers in.
oh,
But anyway,
well.
it'll end with volume 12, and then I'll release it as a hardcover set. Like 4 volumes in one hardcover book. 3 volumes in the whole hardcover set, and then
Oh,
I'll take
nice, nice.
on other writing projects after that. But it takes me a long time to write each volume. The stories are pretty involved and they're all researched. I try to make them as accurate as possible. A lot of them have a historical context, like that the Great Black Beast story. And I even had one of my relatives in Germany help me with the dialogue and the names and stuff like that in the Great Black Beast. So I try to make it as accurate as possible.
Oh, definitely. Like I can attest to the detail that's gone into it because obviously James himself sent me one of the stories, and I had a chance to read through a good bit of it before coming on to do this interview with yourself tonight. Um, and it was extremely well written.
Thank you.
Very well, yeah. Like even the details down, like I'm not going to give anything away for someone that's going to read it, but the detail in the story, even from say 5 lines in, you could tell it's extremely well done, and the descriptions that you've done in it were amazing to read. Like I know, Joe, you obviously get that cliche when someone's reading a story, it paints a picture in their head. I could actually, like, theoretically, you could say you could see it happening in front of you.
Well, I appreciate that. Actually, my editor is really good. After volume 1, I realized I needed to get a better editor because the first time I used Amazon editing for the series for volume 1, and the volume 1 turned out really well, but it wasn't as polished or as I wanted it to be. That I could probably do better. So I hired an editor, and um, he's actually in Scotland. Well, actually, right now he's in the United States, but he's got his MPhil from Trinity College, and I think it's Dublin, right?
Trinity's in Dublin, yeah. It's
Yeah.
not
So
far.
he's Scottish. His last name is Johnson, and
Oh,
he's so my editor is Scottish, and I write a lot of historical stories and like stories that are set in Europe. So that's one of the reasons I picked him. And also, he's done a lot to improve my writing. So it's actually the writing is really a collaborative effort between myself and him. He's done a really good job with, especially even researching things like, making sure everything is accurate. Like I wrote a story in the first person about like a 19th century ghost ship that's in volume 2 as well. It's called the Lady Cornwall, and he helped me with like some of the nautical terms, that I didn't get quite right and things like that. We both put a lot of effort into making everything as realistic and accurate as possible.
Like with that there, you're saying your editor's in Scotland, right? So
Well,
that
he he's
that
from he's from Scotland, but right now he's in Iowa in the United States. He's getting his MFA in creative writing here in the U.S.
but
So
even that still might be as far. I don't know how far the Colorado is away from Iowa. Um, but like that the development that you'd have of trust with your editor, that you're happy for him to help you develop the story and change what needs to change. Obviously, I know that's the role of an editor, but like from you having wrote it to him saying, "Well, this isn't right, or that's not right, or you could do this better." Like that could probably wreck somebody's confidence that's writing.
no, I mean,
But if you have full trust in the editor to help you
uh,
along,
yeah, he's actually, my background is not in English lit or creative writing at all. I just read a lot, but he understands the mechanics of writing a lot better than I did, when I first started. So,
yeah,
I had a big vocabulary from years of reading, but and I had lots of story ideas, and I've read a lot and watched lots of movies, so I kind of understand like the plotting, pacing and things like that, like story structure. But he actually, that's the missing piece, is that I didn't have a really strong grasp of like how sentences could be structured and rewritten and to improve them and things like that. So I kind of let him take that lead. He really does light revision. He doesn't do like a major overhaul of the story. I wouldn't probably accept that kind of criticism, but like
okay.
almost 95% of the rewrites that he does are appropriate, and they've always improved the story.
But as it says, then the trust between yourself and himself obviously has to be at a high level that you're happy for him to do it, and then obviously he sends it back to you for you
Yeah,
to finally rubber stamp it.
yeah. So he's done volumes 2, 3, and 4, and I'm going to send him volume 5 like next month. So that it's ready in October.
Awesome. Um, and what I might do is I might purchase volume one and try and go through it. Obviously, it says I'm not a big reader. Um, and I can get back to you then, and we can go. I'll go through them from there.
Okay, well, yeah, or
Um,
you can also give it to somebody else too if you just want to have them, if you think it'd be something that they'd be interested in. Because yeah, volume 1, actually, I sent it out to some people on different podcasts and like YouTube channels that were horror, and it got adapted. 3 of the stories got adapted for Chilling Tales for Dark Nights, which is it has millions of followers on YouTube. I'm pretty sure it has millions, but
that's very impressive.
the 3-story adaptation, it's like several hours long, the readings, it has over 100,000 views on YouTube. So that was one of the reasons that volume 1 did well. That I just wrote it and sent it out, and I got picked up by Chilling Tales for Dark Nights, and it reached a large audience right away, even though it was my first book, and I had just written it, just given it the kind of light revision with Amazon and sent it out, and they really liked it. They thought
Like
it was something really fresh for them.
like how proud must you be to see your book, say, even getting transformed into that podcast and having reaching so many people, that so many people have actually sat down and listened to it.
What is it?
Like how proud must you be to see that?
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, yeah, that was exciting for me as a new author, but the thing is, in order to really do this, you have to keep doing it consistently. So
Oh
you have to,
yeah,
yeah, you have to keep reaching out, and like Mick Dark, the Canadian YouTube horror narrator, I just found him through Twitter, and he was really enthusiastic about everything that I sent him. He doesn't have as large of an audience, but he's very talented. So people in the horror community know who he is, and he wants to keep working with me and adapting my stories as I release volumes.
Like the one thing I'll say is, okay, you're saying he's not that popular, right?
Well, he's
But
not as popular as Chilling Tales for Dark Nights. I think that they have, I'll actually look.
well,
I mean,
they
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 have a
they're
very large audience.
no, but it's not even that. Like I know Chilling Tales. Obviously most people who do podcasts are definitely horror fans would. But like when you're saying it in terms of popularity, for me, when you look at certain podcasters, they make such good content that just doesn't get picked up. It's such a hard market to break in terms of getting to say massive following,
I
especially
mean,
in terms of horror.
yeah, the horror. You mean the horror genre is difficult to gain a large following with?
In terms of the podcast, yeah.
Yeah, I guess that's true. Um, it's probably not the most popular uh, podcast out there. Most of the podcasts have something to do with like personal improvement of some type, or
Uh,
like what would be a nonfiction market if it was written in a book. But yeah, I mean, the getting a really large horror following is probably difficult. But I mean, there are like there's the No Sleep podcast. Have you heard of that?
that one's a good one. Yeah, I listened to that. I actually listened to that drive when I do be driving home after a late shift or something.
Yeah, so
Um,
yeah, that's pretty popular. And Chilling Tales for Dark Nights is popular. So
there's something about your man's voice on that No Sleep, Doctor Sleep. His voice is just there's something eerie about it.
yeah, I haven't heard it in a while. I haven't really. I mean, I remember checking them out, and like I submitted a story to them, but they're constantly being inundated with stories. So
Oh
I think
yeah,
my story got kind of lost in the slush pile somewhere.
it might be worth
They did
it might be
respond and
worthwhile
say that
sending
they
it in
weren't ready
again.
for it. What?
Maybe send in another short story to
Well, yeah,
them and
I'll
see.
keep trying as I have time, but
Yeah,
yeah, I mean, right now I'm focusing on getting the volumes out on time and following
yeah,
the
yeah.
April October schedule.
Well, the fact that you've committed to a schedule kind of must help as well. That you know you have a deadline of say February to be finished.
Yeah, I mean, it has to, that's again, in order to build a real audience, you need to follow a schedule. They have to know when the books are coming out. And, you
Yeah,
have to keep marketing them.
absolutely. Like I wouldn't say it's an easy job marketing them. Obviously, it's just yourself doing it. Um, and like, do you have a company that markets them for you, or
No, I mean, I have to do it myself pretty much. It's hard to, I mean, uh, you can automate a lot, but like paying a company to do it, it'll be prohibitively expensive for them to do it. Like the return will, because the each book is not that much. You'd have to have a really high volume of book sales in order to justify paying somebody for their time and
yeah,
for
yeah,
their effort to do it. So yeah, book marketing, like a custom book marketing, doesn't really work that well. You have to
yeah,
either just use the tools and techniques that are available to market your book and do it yourself, or like if you get signed up with a traditional publisher, they'll do it. But if you do get success as an independent author, you'll have a higher margin for your book sales, because that's the thing, is that when you're published traditionally, you're paying for the whole um, publishing house and all of their labor, and all their overhead. So if you reach a large enough audience independently, your book sale margins are a lot better because you've cut all that out.
and it's all about that money.
Well, no, I mean, you have to, in order to keep writing, you have to be profitable. I mean, unless it was just like an expensive hobby for you or something, you
Either
want
that
to at
or
least get a return on what you've put into, editing and book covers and things like that. So
either that or you have a really good second job.
yeah, or yeah, you can fund it, but again, realistically, you'd want to at least turn some sort of profit doing this. Other than that, it's just your hobby that you pay for. I
Yeah,
do it anyway, even if it turns out to be a loss. I'll keep doing it. But the idea is at least make back what you put into it.
you've committed
Hopefully
at
more
this
than that.
stage.
Yeah, I'm definitely committed at this stage that I'll keep
Well,
writing. I've always wanted to do this. and it's hard to get traditionally published, and you have to make a lot of compromises, which is another reason I didn't consider trying to do it. The kind of low probability and the nature of the publishing industry is that unless you're somebody like Stephen King who can pretty much write whatever he wants, and they usually they just want to. The way it was before is that they would do a print run, and if it was successful, then they'd pick up your second book or whatever. But if your print run the first time just dropped off and died, then your career died with it. Even if you were one of the people that was lucky enough to get picked up by a traditional publisher. So they were never vested in like having you be successful.
Straight off the cliff,
Yeah, it's all a numbers game for them, where they pick up authors, see if they float, see if their book has legs, and then
that's a good Stephen King pun right there. See if they float.
Yeah, so I don't know if that is that a quote from? Is that from
not,
it?
Yeah, you all float down here is the quote from me.
No, I didn't realize I was quoting it. I was thinking about it. Well, actually, when I was talking about it, but that's the thing, is that even if you did manage to get a published traditionally, the publishing house didn't really care whether or not you were successful. If you were lucky enough to, get successful once you were in front of an audience and like in bookstores, then they keep picking up your books. But if you drop off the first time, then your career is over. And that happened to a number of authors who had traditional deals. Their books fell through and they only sold like a few hundred copies or maybe a few thousand copies, and then they were never heard from again. But then when the internet publishing is now an option, they resumed their writing careers and started self-publishing and building up an audience that way. They started their own publishing company that just publishes their own work.
That's good in a way though, because like there's so many good writers that won't be picked up.
Yeah, exactly.
Talent goes out the window and it's wasted.
Yeah, I mean, Stephen King, he appeals to a lot of people, and he could have very well just never had a career if things were a little bit different. Actually, I think his first book was Carrie, right? I think it was Carrie.
I do believe so. I think he might have had a short story before that.
Oh yeah, he was always publishing short stories and things like that. But I think his first published novel with a publisher was Carrie. So he originally threw it out. He was, just unhappy with the result. His wife fished the manuscript out of the trash, and he ended up he sent it. I forgot how many times he was rejected, but he eventually got a publisher, and then it was a hit. It like connected with people, and then he kept getting published and published. But I mean, it was the way things were back then. I think it was in the 1970s that he could have easily just fallen off a cliff, and he would have been an obscure writer. Like publishing short stories, he would have never reached the audience he did. I mean, he has a talent, or he wouldn't have such an audience, but a lot of it was luck too, the way things were back then.
Well, like even then, you say in terms of that, right? So even actors and actresses have a lot of luck to get cast in a role. So like you need luck in any job or any kind of profession to make it.
But you don't have to be as lucky now as you used to be. Like there was it was a lot harder to reach people without the internet and without
absolutely
tools. So I mean, there's still an element of luck in this, but it's more perseverance and skill now. That if you just keep plugging away, you will build a significant audience, and you will likely have a career in doing this on some level. Before you just be obscure.
I'd go as far as saying now that I'm generally glad Stephen King started when he did, because if he had wrote those stories now, with the nature of people now, most of them wouldn't get made, because obviously people get offended so easily now.
Yeah, I mean,
some of the things in some of the books are a bit iffy, to say the least.
Well, yeah, I mean, he writes a lot of about a number of rough subjects, and he's had a lot of personal struggles too, with
Oh yeah.
like substance abuse and things like that. So he's like writing from a dark place in a lot of cases. So yeah, I don't think that. Well, the thing is, like, it is pretty sanitized, even though it's a scary R-rated movie. It's pretty sanitized compared to the book, I would think.
Oh,
Uh,
absolutely.
yeah, I haven't
Because
seen
I,
I haven't seen the movie. I've watched scenes from it, but I haven't seen the movie. But
have you read the book?
I read parts of the book. I
Yeah.
never had time. It's long, so I never got through the
So
whole thing.
I said to you before I came on, I've read about 9 or 10 books in my life. Three of them being sports autobiographies, the rest of them being Stephen King. Now, excluding what I've done in school, I've read 3 times, and there's a whole 2 chapters in the middle of that book that I'm not going to explain what happens in. That will never ever make it to a remake of a movie
Yeah,
ever.
I think I know what they are. So I mean,
Ah,
I'm surprised that they would even the publisher would allow him to do that. But he's famous enough where he can kind of get away with things that would
ah,
ruin the careers of other authors,
yeah, like because
or at least get that content cut out.
it's very fucking iffy.
Yeah,
Um,
I mean, I know what it is, but
yeah. But anyway, so like, what inspired you? Obviously, you said that you like creative writing. So, was there any horror films or stuff that inspired you to be a writer?
yeah, I mean, I really liked watching those anthology TV series when I was young. So Twilight Zone, of course, and Night Gallery is the kind of successor to Twilight Zone. It's more of a horror focused
And
show instead of a science fiction show like the
I never,
Twilight Zone.
I never bought into that one. Night
The
Watch
Night Gallery.
or Night Gallery. Sorry, I never bought into that. Just couldn't get
Yeah,
into it.
yeah. It's not nearly as well known as the Twilight Zone, but
Yeah,
it was narrated or it was hosted by Rod Sterling as well. So he would appear like in this kind of uh, night gallery, this gallery at night, and there would be this horrific or disturbing painting, and he says, and this is, they would introduce the show and then they'd zoom in on the painting. So like they adapted some H.P. Lovecraft stories, like Pickman's Model. They did a really good adaptation of an H.P. Lovecraft story, and he and the series became more science fiction as it went on, but it started out with a really strong horror vein. Like the first episode, the pilot episode, is like a kind of a ghost story, and it's about this like nephew that murders his uncle to gain his inheritance, and then the butler is wise to him. So it's with Roddy McDowall and I can't remember the other actor's name, but you can watch it. Just look for Night Gallery pilot if you want to watch one episode of the series. That's actually one of the best ones they ever did.
so like we had them obviously. Tales of the Crypt, another big one.
Yeah,
Um,
Tales from the Crypt. I would watch that, and then there's Tales from the Dark Side.
yeah, they were
You
very
remember?
good.
Yeah, so I'd watch Tales from the Dark Side every like Saturday evening. I'd watch that religiously for years. And there was Monsters too, which is kind of more obscure, and it had like science fiction and horror, shorts. And I was just inspired to write the series based on watching all those anthology shows, and then also their anthology movies like Trilogy of Terror, where Karen Black plays 3 different characters in 3 different short stories.
Very
And
similar. Yeah, that's done very similar to the way Netflix done Fear Street.
I don't really subscribe to Netflix anymore. I haven't watched Fear Street,
Oh,
so
it's just the way they had the same kind of cast playing different characters at different times in their life, if you know what I mean. So one was set in 1960 or 1666, one was set in 1972, one was set in 94. So you know that kind of way they had the same cast kind of run through. Does that make sense?
yeah, I understand. You mean they have the same character,
The
or they
same
have the same
principles,
actors
yeah,
playing different roles in different stories. Yeah, so
yeah,
Trilogy of Terror is set up like that.
yeah.
Where
That's it. Yeah. I don't think I've actually seen all of that trilogy there. I think I've only seen the first part.
Yeah, I can't remember what the first story. Yeah, the first story is about a college professor. Like Karen Black plays a college professor, and
No, I don't.
she
I
has an
don't.
affair with one of her students. Like she's an English lit professor.
No, then it's not that one
That's
I've
that's
seen.
that's the first story, I think.
um, yeah, no, I don't think it's that one I've seen. So like I know predominantly we talk about movies. So obviously there's some of the things that inspired you to write anthologies or well collections. So like, what would some of your favorite horror movies be?
I mean, I've recently been people have been talking about The Shining, and I watched Doctor Sleep, which is the sequel to The Shining. So The Shining is probably one of the best horror movies, the Kubrick version that's ever been made, and Doctor Sleep was a really good movie, and I watched that recently, like on Tubi TV. I don't know if I'm pretty sure they get Tubi TV in the UK, but I don't know if you get it in Ireland or not.
Um, I think you can get it. I don't have it.
Okay, well
I do
you
think
can
you
you
can get
don't
it.
have to pay for it. It's like free with commercials. It's like just you can just go to the site and watch it in a browser.
Oh,
And
yeah, no, I don't think I've ever used it. I
okay,
know of it though.
yep,
But
but
the likes of Doctor Sleep is on Amazon Prime over here.
okay, yeah. So that's the other place that you could watch it. But Tubi TV's free with commercials, so I just watched Doctor Sleep on there. I was impressed with it. Yeah, how good it is. It starts at kind of its own movie. Like the first two thirds are its own movie, where it's a completely different plot related to um, the True Knot, which are like these psychic vampires that prey on psychically sensitive people. They call their energy the steam, and they devour steam. That's how they live, and they live for millennia if they can keep finding victims. And then the last third of the movie is it goes back to the Overlook Hotel, which is now abandoned and shut up. Like it's boarded up. And then, the Danny, who's now a grown man, middle-aged man, he has the confrontation with he has the kind of a closure with the hotel, the Overlook, which is,
Oh
is
yeah,
is kind of alive. Like the house is not just haunted; it's like the whole house is, or the whole hotel is alive in a sense.
yeah,
It's like
the entity.
it's an entity in itself. So it's actually, yeah, I was really impressed with it, especially the last part of it.
I haven't seen Doctor Sleep yet. I'm not the biggest Ewan McGregor fan. So I'll tend to put it off and put it off. But like the lads were saying, it's very good.
It
Obviously
is a really good movie.
not as good as The Shining, obviously, but um, like, there's not a lot of movies that are made that are going to be better than that at this stage.
Yeah, I don't think that uh, it's you're going to get something that's there. There might be a prequel movie for The Shining that comes out that's been talked about, but I don't know if it'll ever happen or not.
I think that's been talked about for years, though, hasn't it?
Yeah, but it
And it's
would.
going to show. It'll show the picture. Is it the picture, the one you're saying where where Jack's sitting at the bar and the barman hands him the 19 Christmas in 1921 or whatever, and he's the caretaker in it. That was
Yeah,
the story that I read that they were going to lead off to.
yeah, I just like I really don't. I remember reading that something like that was planned, but I don't remember the details. But the Doctor Sleep got made because Stephen King actually wrote the sequel. It wasn't something that was just planned by Hollywood. And it was, he decided to finally write a sequel to the Shining novella, and because the whole movie industry wants to keep adapting his novels, it got made.
He's like gold at the minute, though, isn't he, in terms of horror? Anything he touches or anything that he has done, like the one thing we done a Stephen King episode a couple of weeks ago, and I said it on it. I says it's a shame a lot of his books to movies were bought, made for TV, and done so cheaply
Well,
because of
have
how
you ever
good the
seen
stories are.
Salem's Lot, the two-part miniseries?
Salem's Lot is immense.
Yeah, so that was done for TV, and it was done as like two parts in I think 1979, and uh, it's not low budget. It still holds up today, even though it's a very 70s. like
Oh yeah,
the way everyone's dressed and everything like that. But you can watch it today and it's still a quality horror movie.
and the vampire in it is just immense.
Yeah, it's a Nosferatu type vampire.
Yeah, it's a real, like, you show that vampire to anybody and they're like, Jesus Christ, I haven't seen anything like that before. Because obviously you show people vampires now. You say you have Stephen Dorff and Blade, right? You have um whatever your man's name, Robert Patterson was in Twilight, which isn't a horror obviously, but then you go to 30 Days a Night and you see the different types of vampires that they've made throughout the years. You go back and you look at Nosferatu and then you look at Salem's Law and you're like, they hold up ridiculously well against some of the new ones.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the vampire movies made in the past, recent past, haven't been very good. It's the classic vampire movies are still good.
Yeah,
Have you ever watched the silent film Nosferatu?
yeah, it's amazing.
You have? Okay.
Yeah,
I've
Carl
never watched the
obviously
whole thing. I will
never,
someday.
so I'll get on it.
Yeah, I will.
Carl,
I'm writing, so I don't have time. I used to watch movies more regularly, but I'm trying to get this volume
mm,
5 done.
the
So,
King, our other co-host Carl, he has a Nosferatu tattoo here.
okay, that's
Yeah,
cool.
yeah,
But yeah,
he loves it.
he's closer to the way Bram Stoker envisioned Dracula originally. Dracula. Well, I mean, he was when he was he'd make an appearance. He looked like he did before he was a vampire, but when he'd also become monstrous as well.
So there's a question that you brought up, Dracula, right? Have you seen? Obviously, you've seen movies that have Dracula in it.
uh-huh. Yeah, of
Who
course.
would you say is the best Dracula?
Uh,
I'm putting you on the
uh,
spot now.
Let me think. I mean, I watched the original with I think Bela Lugosi, right? The one
Yeah,
from
that's nine.
1932, Dracula.
Yeah, amazing.
Okay, and then um,
You've got
I've
Christopher
watched
Lee.
I've watched the 1979 Dracula with Frank Langella, and he wasn't quite a good fit for Dracula, but it was a really good movie.
Yeah, he done the part as well as it was made to be for him.
Yeah, so he wasn't, he doesn't really is not that really convincing as Dracula, but he's a good actor, and the movie was good. And then there was Gary Oldman and like then Francis Ford Coppola's Dracula.
The '92
So
one, yeah.
that's probably I'd say other than the original, that's probably the best Dracula so far.
So that so between me and the lads, we talk about it quite regularly. All three of us have different Draculas as number one.
Okay.
Uh, Ian has, as far as if I can remember correctly, Ian has Christopher Lee.
Okay. Well, yeah,
So
I didn't think about the Hammer
yeah,
Draculas because
um,
those aren't really. I mean, they're not the adaptation of the story. Like
yeah,
they're because they're
but
like Dracula
yeah,
appearing in different settings.
yeah. Carl has Bella,
Bela
and
Lugosi, yeah,
yeah, Gary Oldman's my favorite Dracula. I think he's the closest to Dracula that there has been.
yeah. So yeah,
The
then
movie
we
might have
picked
been great.
yeah we picked the same one. So like of the recent Draculas, like that are actually in a Dracula
Setting.
novella adaptation, um, that Gary Oldman would be the best of them so far.
I'll tell you what though, one to keep an eye on was what's his name now? Or Luke, sorry, not Chris Evans, Luke Evans. He done a very good Dracula in Dracula Untold.
Yeah, I don't think I've seen that one. Do you know who Jack Palance is? He's like an American
No,
actor. Yeah, he
but
did.
I might do. Hold on.
Yeah, Dan Curtis directed him in a version of Dracula. He's actually the son of Ukrainian immigrants, and I guess they thought that because he's from East, his family's from Eastern Europe, he'd make a good Dracula, but he didn't really fit the part very well. I started
Obviously,
watching it, and
yeah,
I think it's like I think it was done in the 70s. So let me look it
yeah.
up really quickly.
74. I have it there.
Yeah,
I
Jack
have.
Palance Dracula. So it was Dan Curtis. Dan Curtis is a TV director, and it was Bram Stoker's Dracula 1974. Jack Palance played the role of Dracula. And Dan Curtis has actually done a lot of really good made-for-TV horror movies, and he did Trilogy of Terror actually. But
Oh.
uh, Jack Palance wasn't a good fit for Dracula, just like Frank Langella wasn't a good fit for
Let,
Dracula.
let's be fair.
They were
The
both
real
70s.
the real correct answer to the best Dracula would be Leslie Nielsen.
Oh well, yeah. So I can't remember the name of the movie, but yeah, he played the comedic Dracula.
He was gas. No, so and what I'll do is just before we wrap it up tonight, I'll get you to name off your top five horror movies for you.
So I was just somebody was debating about this on Twitter. They said Exorcist 3 is actually better than The Exorcist, and
False.
yeah, I don't know. I'd say that Exorcist C is actually really good, but I'd say that Exorcist is one of the great ones, and then The Shining, and then I really never think about like a top 10 or top five for horror movies. I'd say that we were just talking about this, so I'll just plug it. It's not like an all-time great, but I was really impressed by this Irish horror director Ivan Kavanagh. The Canal, which was done in 2014. It was filmed in Dublin, Ireland. And it says a film archivist finds his sanity crumbling after he's given an old 16 millimeter film reel with footage from a horrific murder that occurred in the early 1900s. So he's also done Sun for Shudder. It was like a Shudder original or a Shudder exclusive, and
Yeah.
both of the movies are really good. Um, Sun is something like The Omen, which I'd say is one of the top horror movies of all time. The original Omen
Would
from
you?
the 1970s.
I wouldn't go quite that far now. I never bought into the Omen.
Okay, I mean it's considered to be it's one of the ones that
Oh,
really reached a large audience of horror fans or like
it's
fans
def,
in
it's
general.
de- it's definitely there. I just wouldn't, for me, I wouldn't put it up as one of the all-time greats. Like there's certain films that you'd say all-time greats, but obviously films are so opinionated that all-time greats are always going to change.
Yeah, I mean any list will be different, among film critics or fans, but yeah, I'd say that the Omen's probably yeah. I mean it's maybe not in the top five, but it's certainly one of the best. And all three of those, The Exorcist, The Shining, and The Omen, all reached a lot. They were really popular horror movies. Horror isn't the most popular genre. Most
No.
horror movies are kind of low budget or like B movies, but all of those reached a large audience internationally, even. So,
Um,
but yeah,
uh,
if your Irish audience wants to check out Ivan Kavanagh, because you never even heard of him.
I hadn't heard of it. No.
You might
No.
actually he's been on podcasts before, just like kind of independent podcasts like this. You might reach out to him and interview him when you want to,
Definitely.
because
Um,
both I was impressed with both the movies. The Canal is really scary. I mean, there are some genuinely unnerving and horrifying scenes in that movie.
I'll
And it's
definitely.
it's
I'm
kind
gonna
of
go.
like
I'm
a
gonna go. I'm gonna go try check it out now.
yeah,
This
it's
evening.
kind of like a ghost story or a cult story. And Sun is something like The Omen. It's about not the Antichrist, but it's like about a half demon child. That's
Awesome.
like the his father is like a major demon. Some sort of
Emil Hirsch is in that one.
who's in that one?
Emil Hirsch. He's the
Yeah, Emil
dad.
Hirsch. That's right. Yeah, Emil Hirsch
Uh,
he plays one of the. Well, I won't give it away, but he's one of the main characters in that.
yeah. So what? Let me off two more, and we'll call it a day for the evening.
Okay, so Martyrs, which is a French movie, and I wouldn't say it's probably one of the all-time greats, but it's so unusual and has such an incredible ending. Have you seen it?
The yeah, I've seen it already.
Yeah.
I had the disfortunate pleasure of watching that one.
Well, yeah. I mean,
Um,
it's a really violent. Uh,
it's a
you know,
rough watching there.
yeah, it's really rough. Even though I watched a lot of horror movies, it was kind of rough to watch. But I'd say that it's not maybe in the top five or top 10, but it's like a groundbreaking horror movie, and that it
The
is.
filleting scene is just rotten.
Yeah, like there's a scene near the end where someone's skinned alive,
Yeah,
and it's really tough
it's
to
rough.
watch. Yeah, it's tough to watch that, but the ending is, I think, is one of the best endings in a horror movie of all time. Um, and it's it's kind of tied into Catholic theology, sort of. So like the movie itself. There's another horror movie called The Ordeal. It's a Belgian movie in French, and it has to do with like the Stations of the Cross. Like going through the Stations of the Cross,
Oh
but
yeah,
it's
yeah.
like tied into this really strange movie about this backwater area of Belgium, and this strange town. And then I don't know, a fifth movie. I'd say that's that would stand out. A fifth horror movie. Um, I'd say maybe Salem's Lot. That I mentioned earlier. Um, it was certainly it's the first horror movie I ever watched when I was
Oh, is it?
in elementary school. Yeah, and I watched it on TV when it premiered. So, so
Awesome.
it really worked my young mind, and got me interested in horror movies and vampires and things like that. I thought, it's just today that also has one of the best endings in a horror movie,
It's
where they're trying to escape the coven of vampires, and they go all the way to Guatemala, and David Soul and his young charge, his youthful ward, they're hiding out in this small village, and they come in, and Bonnie Bedelia, who is his girlfriend in the movie, and she's in another Stephen King movie called Needful Things. Did you see that one?
no, I don't. Well, I don't know. I don't think so by the name of it, but I might have. I've
Okay,
seen
well,
so many movies, I can't remember. You know, when I so could be sitting there and put something on, I'd be like, oh, I've seen this.
so yeah, she plays. I think that was the second Stephen King movie she's been in, but she plays like the girlfriend of David Soul, and they come into the house, and she's like laying on a bed, and he realizes that she's a vampire now. They didn't realize that when they escaped the town and burned down the mansion. But then she's talking to him, and she opens her eyes, and she has the vampiric eyes, and he takes out a stake and stabs her through the heart, and that's the end of
It's
the miniseries, and then like zooms into the full moon and then fades out. So I
that
thought that was a
that
great ending.
that's zooming into the full moon. I always thought from the first time I seen it, are they kicking this on to a werewolf movie now?
No, I mean, the vampires only come out at night, so
No, no, I
yeah,
get that, but you know, like, just the significance of having the full moon. I was like,
yeah.
I always thought, are they gonna run this into like a follow on with werewolves or something?
No, it's just it was just a way to end it, without just cutting away.
Yeah, no,
I
I
thought it
know,
was
I
a
get
clever
that,
ending.
but Joe, it was just where you could it or couldn't it be something
Yeah, I
different?
never got that from watching it. I think the moon was actually like dimly blood red or something like that. That
Yeah,
they were showing like the connection to the vampires.
yeah. Right. Well, this has been a very fun chat. So we'll wrap it up there tonight. Um, and we do want to thank you for taking the time to come on tonight.
Yeah, I
Um,
appreciate being here. I mean, I always like just coming on and talking to people about horror. I've always learned a few things. You mentioned like an Irish director that I hadn't heard of before, like an Irish horror director, and you want to maybe mention him because I talked about
oh,
Ian Kavanagh and you hadn't heard of him.
sorry, you're talking about the one from before we came on.
Yeah, before we came on, what was his name?
Oh yeah, sorry, that was Sean Bratnock who directed Beyond the Woods. It's a movie that I watched there this evening before we came on.
Okay, let me look
Um,
it up. Beyond the
yeah,
Woods.
it's a very good Irish movie.
Is it? Did he
He wrote and
make?
directed it.
Okay, how do you spell his first name?
Sean.
Sean Braddock.
No, Breathnach.
Okay, yeah, here it is. Beyond the Woods.
Yeah.
So
Um.
I've never heard of this movie. I don't think. And it was made in
Yeah.
2018, And it says a gathering of friends is thrown into chaos by the opening of a mysterious fiery sinkhole near their secluded holiday home.
Yeah, very, very good. Give it a watch.
Okay, yeah, I
Uh,
will watch it. So, and
and
I should be. It says it's on Amazon Prime, but it might be on Tubi TV too, where
yeah,
I
no,
watch
I think,
horror movies for free
oh, yeah.
with commercials.
Yeah. So as it
It's
says,
on Tubi TV. So
we'll leave it there for the evening. James, thanks very much for taking the time out of your day to come on. I'm not sure what time of the day it is over there, but it's
yeah,
getting late here.
it's 5 o'clock, about 5 o'clock. So yeah,
It's
it's
getting
the
late
late
here.
afternoon here, but
Yeah,
it's after midnight for you guys.
it sure is. So ladies and gentlemen, this has been your On the Slab for this week. I will post all the James links below and the link to purchase the book off Amazon. And support them if you can. It's a very well written book, or well, from the chapters that I read. And for this evening, ladies and gentlemen, stay scared.
All right, I appreciate being on. Thank you.